I pulled into my driveway at 2 in the afternoon, 10 minutes after leaving for the grocery store. My wallet was sitting on the kitchen counter. I'd made it all the way to the checkout line before realizing, getting older, I suppose. I turned off the engine and walked toward the front door, keys already in hand. The house was quiet. Michael's car sat in the driveway next to Rebecca's sedan. They were both home, probably working in their separate offices like they did most afternoons. I pushed open the door carefully. The hinges squeaked if you weren't gentle, and I didn't want to disturb them. That's when I heard Rebecca's voice drifting from the master bedroom down the hall. My bedroom. The door was cracked open, maybe 3 inches. "The funeral arrangements are practically done," she said. Her tone was light, almost cheerful. "A black dress, closed casket probably. Your mother always wanted simple." I stopped breathing. My hand froze on the doorknob. Rebecca laughed, actually laughed. "At least the house will finally be ours, free and clear." My son's voice came next, quieter. "She's not even sick, Beck. Honey, she's 62, overweight," Rebecca continued without missing a beat. "Those chest pains she mentioned last month, I'm just being realistic. Could be any day now. Once she's gone, we can refinance this place. Get the equity out. I already talked to the realtor about market value. We're sitting on $400,000 hard easy." Michael said something I couldn't hear. Rebecca cut him off. "Don't be sentimental. She's had a good life. And frankly, it'll be easier without her watching everything we do. This house, Michael, it's wasted on one person." My legs turned to water. The hallway tilted slightly. I pressed my palm against the wall to steady myself, the cool paint grounding me just enough to think. They didn't know I was here. They thought I was gone for at least another hour. I backed away from the door. 1 step, 2. My shoes made no sound on the hardwood. I reached the entryway, opened the front door with shaking hands, and stepped outside. The afternoon sun hit my face, but I felt nothing. I walked to my car like someone underwater, got in, closed the door, sat there. My daughter-in-law had just planned my funeral, discussed refinancing my house, laughed about it. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to ask something. Please subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and comment below where you're watching from. We absolutely love knowing where our listeners are tuning in from around the world. I didn't cry. Something cold and sharp settled behind my ribs, pushing out the shock. I started the car, pulled out of the driveway, and drove. 3 blocks later, I parked at Morrison's Coffee House, walked inside, ordered chamomile tea I had no intention of drinking. I sat by the window and opened my phone. Time to find out exactly how deep this went. I sat in that coffee shop, staring at my untouched tea, and the memories came whether I wanted them or not. 14 years ago, David collapsed in our kitchen on a Tuesday morning. No warning. The coroner said massive cardiac arrest. He was 46. I was 48. Michael had just started his sophomore year at State. I remember standing in our bedroom the week after the funeral, looking at David's accounting practice files, his client list, everything he'd built over 20 years. A business broker offered me $230,000 for it. I took the offer, invested most of it, kept working my bookkeeping job at the medical supply company, the same job I'd had since Michael was born. Michael came home that Christmas break, different, quieter. He'd sit at the kitchen table with his textbooks, and I'd catch him staring at nothing. One night he said, "I should drop out, Mom, get a job, help with bills." I told him absolutely not. His father had wanted him to finish, so Michael stayed in school, and I paid tuition, room, board, 4 years. Then he got accepted to the MBA program at Preston, $60,000 for 2 years. I wrote the checks, used a chunk of what David left us, but Michael needed it. He was going to have opportunities his father never had. He graduated top 15% of his class, came to me with a business plan 6 months later. This idea for a consulting firm helping small architecture practices with project management software. He needed $40,000 to start. I gave it to him. Called it a loan, but we both knew better. Within 3 years, he was turning profit. Then he met Rebecca at some networking event. She worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company, made decent money, drove a Lexus. Michael brought her to Sunday dinner, and she spent the whole time asking about the house, the neighborhood, my retirement accounts. I thought she was just making conversation. They got engaged after 8 months. Rebecca called me one afternoon and said, Martha, Michael, and I have been talking. We really want to start our marriage right, in a place that reflects who we are as a couple. We found this beautiful condo in the Riverside district, but we're a bit short on the down payment. I asked how much. She said $80,000 total, for both the wedding and the down payment. I could hear Michael in the background saying something, his voice uncertain. Rebecca laughed and said, "Your son is too proud to ask, but I know you want us to be happy." I transferred the money that week. 2 years later, Michael showed up at my house on a Saturday morning. The house David and I had bought 30 years earlier, 3 bedrooms, paid off, my sanctuary. Michael walked through the rooms like he was seeing them for the first time. "Mom, you're alone here," he said. "All this space." Meanwhile, Rebecca and I are packed into that condo. What if we sold this place and the condo, pooled everything, got something bigger? We could all live together, split costs. You wouldn't be alone anymore. I should have said no, but the house had felt empty since David died, and Michael was my son, my only child. We bought the new house in Oakmont 3 months later. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a yard. I put in $280,000. Michael and Rebecca put in $120,000. My name went on the deed first, majority owner. Rebecca insisted I take the master bedroom. "You paid the most, Martha. It's only fair." That was 6 years ago. Sitting in the coffee shop, I started seeing things clearly for the first time. The bills, electricity, water, property tax, insurance, they all came to me. I paid them every month. Michael and Rebecca contributed what they called their share, but it was always less than a third. Rebecca redecorated the living room last year. $12,000 worth of furniture I never wanted. She asked my opinion after everything was delivered. The master bedroom Rebecca insisted I take. I realized now it isolated me. Upstairs, end of the hall, away from everything. They had the 2 bedrooms on the main floor, including the one they'd converted to Rebecca's office. I walked past it every day, saw her in there on calls, running her life. My house had become her headquarters. I opened my banking app and logged in, scrolled through 6 months of transactions. There it was, like evidence I'd been too blind to see. The mortgage payment I'd thought we paid off 3 years ago, still showing up monthly, $1,500. I called the bank. "Mrs. Harrison, you refinanced in March of last year," the representative said. "Took out a home equity line. The monthly payment is for that." I never signed refinance papers. I asked her to email me the documents. She did. I sat there in Morrison's coffee house and opened the PDF on my phone. There was my signature, except it wasn't. The loops were wrong, the slant too steep. Someone had forged it. My hands didn't shake anymore. They were perfectly steady as I took a screenshot and saved it to a folder I titled Evidence. I pulled into the driveway at 5:15, 3 hours after I'd left, long enough that my grocery trip wouldn't seem suspicious. I grabbed the bags I'd actually filled this time, went back to the store after the coffee shop, bought things we didn't need just to sell the story. The front door opened before I reached it. "Martha," Rebecca stood there, one hand on her chest like she'd been genuinely worried. "Where have you been?" I was getting concerned. "You're usually back in an hour." She touched my arm. Warm fingers, slight squeeze. I watched her face arrange itself into perfect sympathy. "Ran into Carol Peterson at the store," I said, naming a woman from my old book club I hadn't seen in months. We got talking, lost track of time. Rebecca took 2 grocery bags from my hands. "Well, I'm just glad you're safe. Come on, let me help you put these away." We walked to the kitchen together. She unpacked produce while I stored the canned goods. Her movements were efficient, practiced. This was her kitchen now. I realized I was the visitor. "You look exhausted," she said, glancing over. "Are those chest pains bothering you again?" I stopped, jar of pasta sauce in hand. I hadn't mentioned chest pains in nearly a month. One offhand comment back in October about indigestion after eating too fast. "I'm fine," I said. "You really should see Dr. Patterson." She closed the refrigerator and leaned against it, arms crossed. "Michael and I were just saying this morning, you need a full cardiac workup. At your age, you can't be too careful." This morning, before I'd come home, before they knew I'd overheard anything, this had been planned. "Maybe you're right," I said, making my voice uncertain. "I suppose it wouldn't hurt." Her whole face brightened. "Good. I'm so relieved. And while you're at it, maybe think about updating your will. Just to be safe. She reached out, patted my hand. You know, in case, she trailed off. Let the implication hang there. In case you die, in case something happens. In case we're right about those chest pains and you drop dead before we can get our hands on everything. That's thoughtful, I said. I smiled at her. I'll make some appointments this week. Perfect. She squeezed my hand once more. Michael's making dinner. His famous chicken parmesan should be ready in 20 minutes. I went upstairs, walked past my bedroom, past Rebecca's office with its closed door. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection. 62 years old, 20 pounds overweight. Yes, gray hair I'd stopped coloring 2 years ago. Tired eyes. I looked exactly like what they saw. Someone disposable. Dinner was ready at 6. Michael had set the table, even lit candles. He did that sometimes, made an effort. It was the one genuinely nice thing about him. The way he still cooked meals from scratch, still tried to make occasions out of ordinary evenings. Smells wonderful, I said, sitting down. Thanks, Mom. He served me first, generous portion. Smiled at me the way he used to when he was young. For just a second, I saw my son, the boy who'd cried in my arms after his father died. Then Rebecca sat down across from me, and the illusion shattered. Martha, I've been meaning to ask, Rebecca said, cutting into her chicken. Your retirement accounts, are they all still with Westfield Financial? I chewed slowly. Most of them. And the life insurance policy Daddy left you. She'd started calling David Daddy 2 years ago, like she'd known him. That's still active? As far as I know. Michael cleared his throat. Mom, we're just trying to make sure everything's organized. For your peace of mind, you know. So if anything ever happened, we'd know how to handle things. Like what things? I asked. Rebecca jumped in. Oh, just the practical stuff. Where important documents are. Who your lawyer is. Beneficiary information. We'd hate for there to be any confusion during an already difficult time. During an already difficult time. She meant after I was dead. I appreciate that, I said. I took a sip of water. Everything's handled. My lawyer has copies of everything. Rebecca's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Your lawyer? David's old attorney, Mr. Chen. He's been managing the estate paperwork since David passed. This was a lie. David's attorney had retired years ago. But I watched Rebecca's face tighten just slightly. A crack in the performance. That's great, she said. Maybe we should all sit down with him sometime. Just so Michael and I understand everything. We're family, after all. Of course we are, I said. The rest of dinner was more of the same. Questions disguised as care. Comments about my health, my age, my future. Every word designed to make me think about death, to normalize the idea that I might not be around much longer. At 7:30, I pushed back from the table. I'm exhausted. Think I'll turn in early. Are you feeling okay? Michael stood up, suddenly attentive. Do you need anything? Just tired. Long day. I kissed his cheek, touched his shoulder. He was still my son. Under everything, under the weakness and the greed and the betrayal, he was still the boy I'd raised. That made it worse somehow. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, turned the lock, sat on the edge of my bed, and opened my laptop. Time to find out what else they'd done. I started with my online banking. The main checking account showed normal activity at first glance. Grocery stores, utility bills, gas stations. But when I filtered transactions by recipient, something jumped out. Automatic transfers to an account ending in 4739. $200 on the 15th of every month going back 8 months. I didn't recognize the account number. I clicked through to the transfer details. The receiving account holder was listed as R. Harrison, Rebecca Harrison, $1,600. No, wait, I counted again. 8 months. $200 each time except July, when it was $300, $2,400 total, pulled from my account in amounts small enough that I'd never noticed. I opened a new tab and logged into the investment account where David's life insurance payout had been sitting for 14 years, $150,000, untouched except for the quarterly interest. I'd been paying the premiums on a separate policy, $32 a month, automatic withdrawal, to keep it active. David had wanted the beneficiary to be cancer research. His mother died of it when he was 16. It mattered to him. I clicked on the policy details, primary beneficiary, Michael Harrison, secondary beneficiary, Rebecca Harrison, changed 6 months ago, according to the modification date. I pulled up the change form from the document archive. There was my signature at the bottom, except the capital M in Martha had a loop I never made. The tail on the final, curved wrong. Someone had practiced my signature. Someone had gotten good at it. I sat there staring at the screen until the words blurred. Then I closed the laptop and walked downstairs. The house was dark. Michael and Rebecca's bedroom door was closed, no light underneath. It was 11:30. Rebecca's office was locked, but I had keys to every room. This was my house. I opened the door, closed it silently behind me, and turned on the desk lamp. Her filing cabinet had 4 drawers. The top one was unlocked, just regular household files, insurance papers, utility accounts. The second drawer opened easily. Medical records, tax returns, Michael's business documents. The third drawer stuck. I pulled harder. It opened 6 inches and stopped. Something was jamming it. I reached in, felt a folder wedged against the back, worked it free. Inside were property documents for the Riverside condo, the one I'd helped them buy 6 years ago with that $80,000 gift. According to these papers, they'd refinanced it last March, took out a second mortgage for $70,000. My name was on the refinance application as co-owner authorizing the loan. I'd never seen these papers before in my life, but there was my signature. Same practiced forgery, same wrong loops. I kept digging, found a folder marked Oakmont House. Inside was an application for a home equity line of credit, $120,000 against the house we were living in. Status, pending approval. Reason for delay, requires primary owner signature. They'd submitted it 3 weeks ago. The bank was waiting for me to come in and sign. That's why Rebecca had been so chatty at dinner about my lawyer, my documents, my organization. She was building up to asking me to sign something. Probably would have presented it as routine paperwork, just maintaining the property. Don't worry about the details. I photographed everything with my phone. Every page, every forged signature, every unauthorized transaction. Then I put it all back exactly where I'd found it and locked the office door behind me. Back in my bedroom, I opened my laptop again, checked my credit report, something I did once a year, usually in January, but I logged in now and ran it. 2 hard inquiries I didn't recognize. One from Riverside Credit Union in March, one from Oakmont Community Bank 3 weeks ago, both for loan applications in my name. I clicked through to my email and searched for anything from banks, mortgage companies, financial institutions, found dozens of messages I'd never opened, most of them going straight to a folder I didn't remember creating, a folder labeled Property Management. Someone had set up a filter. Every email containing certain keywords, mortgage, equity, loan, refinance, was automatically moved out of my inbox into this hidden folder. I scrolled through them. Appointment reminders for loan signings I'd never scheduled. Follow-up requests for documentation I'd never submitted. Final notices about applications expiring. Rebecca had access to my email. I'd given her the password 2 years ago when I was in the hospital overnight for a minor procedure and needed her to forward something to my doctor. I'd never changed it. The sun was coming up. Orange light crept through the bedroom window and hit the wall above my dresser, right where David's picture hung. He was smiling in that photo, taken a month before he died. We'd gone to the coast for our anniversary. He looked happy. I wondered what he'd think of all this, of Michael, of me, for letting it happen. They weren't waiting for me to die naturally. That's what I understood as I sat there watching dawn break. The funeral talk wasn't morbid speculation. It was planning, active, intentional planning. They'd been stealing for months, small amounts, forged signatures, hidden transactions, building a foundation. And when the moment came, when I finally signed that equity line paperwork, or when my heart gave out from stress, they were deliberately creating. They'd have everything in place. The house, the insurance, the accounts, all of it ready to transfer the second I was gone. Rebecca's comment about chest pains wasn't casual concern. It was a timeline, an expectation. They were preparing for my death because they intended to benefit from it. The only question was whether they planned to wait for nature to take its course, or if they'd gotten impatient. Monday morning, I called Janet from book club. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but she answered on the second ring. Martha Harrison. My goodness, It's been ages. Janet, I need the name of that estate attorney you used when your mother passed, the one you said was so thorough. She gave me Douglas Chen's number without asking questions. I called his office at 9:15. Chen and Associates. I need an appointment as soon as possible. It's urgent. We have an opening this afternoon at 2. Does that work? It did. Chen's office was downtown, 8th floor of a building I'd driven past 1,000 times. He met me in the reception area himself, a trim man in his mid-50s with silver-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Harrison, come in. I sat across from his desk and pulled out my phone. Showed him the photographs, the forged signatures, the unauthorized transfers. He studied each one in silence. His expression changed after the third image, jaw tightening. Mrs. Harrison, this is financial elder abuse. These forged signatures constitute criminal fraud. The unauthorized transfers are theft. You have grounds for immediate legal action. What kind of action? First, freeze all accounts they have access to. Second, remove them as beneficiaries on every policy and account. Third, consider eviction proceedings. This is your home, correct? Your name on the deed? Majority owner, 70%. Then you can legally evict them with 30 days. Notice, fourth, and I cannot stress this enough, you need to file a police report. Today, I looked at him. I'll do the first 3, not the 4th, not yet. Mrs. Harrison, I want them to show me who they really are. I need to hear them admit what they've done. Chen removed his glasses and set them on the desk. That's dangerous. If they've already forged documents and stolen money, confronting them without legal protection could escalate the situation. I've been called harmless my whole life, I said. Soft, easy. Let them think that a little longer. He studied my face, then nodded once. All right, but we do this carefully. And the moment you have what you need, we file immediately. Over the next 3 days, I executed everything methodically. Tuesday morning, I opened new accounts at Riverside Bank, an institution I'd never used before, transferred every dollar from the old accounts, checking, savings, the investment account with David's life insurance money, left exactly $50 in each old account so they wouldn't notice they'd been cleaned out immediately, changed every password, email, banking, credit cards, investment accounts, used a password manager, generated random strings 20 characters long, wrote them down in a notebook I kept in my purse. Wednesday, I met with Chen again. We filed beneficiary change forms for the life insurance policy. Primary beneficiary was now the American Cancer Society. Secondary was the Riverside Women's Shelter. Michael's name disappeared completely. Updated my will. Everything, house, remaining money, personal possessions, went to charity. Michael received $1 with the notation, for reasons he understands. Chen had me sign an affidavit documenting everything I'd discovered. Dated, notarized, filed with his office. Insurance, he called it. Thursday, I canceled every credit card Michael or Rebecca had ever used. Cards I'd added them to years ago as authorized users, thinking I was helping them build credit. The representatives asked if the cards were lost or stolen. Compromised, I said. That was the truth. By Friday morning, I'd dismantled their access to everything. They didn't know yet. Tonight at dinner, Rebecca would probably try to use the Visa card for takeout like she did every Friday. It would decline. She'd assume the bank made an error. By the time they realized what had happened, I'd be ready. Friday afternoon, I called a locksmith. Michael and Rebecca both worked until 6 on Fridays. Rebecca had a standing meeting. Michael usually stayed late at his office. The locksmith arrived at 3, a woman in her 40s with a tool belt and efficient hands. Just these 2 doors, I said, showed her my bedroom and the study. She had both locks changed in 45 minutes, handed me 2 keys for each door. You want me to dispose of the old locks? She asked. Please. After she left, I stood in my bedroom and turned the new lock, heard the bolt slide into place. Such a small thing. A piece of metal. A mechanism. But it was the first physical boundary I'd set in 6 years. Saturday morning, I made a reservation at Giuliano's for 7 o'clock. 3 people. Then I found Michael and Rebecca in the kitchen having coffee. I'd like to take you both to dinner tonight, I said. Somewhere nice. I want to talk about the future. Our future. Together. They glanced at each other. Rebecca recovered first, smile spreading across her face. Of course, Mom. We'd love that. Michael looked uncertain. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. I've just been thinking about things, about us, about what comes next. I paused. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Rebecca's smile widened. That sounds wonderful. What time? 7. Giuliano's? Perfect. I'll make sure we're ready. I left them there and went upstairs, heard their voices murmuring as I climbed the stairs, too low to make out words, but I knew what they were thinking. The old woman was finally coming around, finally ready to discuss estate planning, maybe sign those papers, make things official. They thought I was walking into their trap. They had no idea I'd built one of my own. Giuliano's had white tablecloths and candlelight. The hostess led us to a corner table, the kind that felt private even with other diners nearby. Rebecca had worn a navy dress and pearls. Michael had on the sport jacket I'd bought him last Christmas. I ordered a bottle of Barolo, $80. Rebecca's eyebrows lifted slightly, but she said nothing. We're celebrating, I said brightly as the waiter poured. What are we celebrating? Michael asked. I raised my glass. To family, to honesty. I paused. To funerals. Rebecca choked on her water, set the glass down hard enough that it clinked against the plate. Michael stared at me. Mom? I smiled at them. 6 days ago, I came home early from grocery shopping. Forgot my wallet. I heard you two in my bedroom talking, planning my funeral. Black dress, closed casket, discussing what you'd do with my house after I was gone. Your house, you called it. The silence felt crystalline, fragile. Rebecca recovered first. Martha, you completely misunderstood. Did I misunderstand? The house will finally be ours, free and clear. Did I misunderstand you saying you'd already talked to a realtor about market value? I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone, set it on the table between us, pressed play. Rebecca's voice came through the speaker, tinny but clear. The funeral arrangements are practically done. Black dress, closed casket probably. At least the house will finally be ours, free and clear. Michael's face drained of color. He looked at Rebecca, then at me, then back at the phone. Once she's gone, we can refinance this place, get the equity out. I already talked to the realtor about market value. I stopped the recording. That's what I misunderstood, I asked. Michael opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Rebecca's expression had gone carefully neutral, calculating her next move. There's more, I said. I pulled a folder from my purse and slid it across the table. The forged mortgage papers on the Riverside condo, the unauthorized transfers from my checking account to yours. Rebecca, $200 a month for 8 months. The life insurance beneficiary change I never signed. Michael reached for the folder with shaking hands, opened it. His face went from white to gray. I went through everything, I continued. My voice was steady. I'd practiced this, found the hidden email folder, the credit inquiries I never authorized, the home equity application waiting for my signature. Rebecca's mask finally cracked. You went through our things. Her voice had gone cold. That's a violation of privacy. You had no right. I laughed. Actually, laughed. The sound surprised even me. Says the woman who stole from me for 8 months. Says the woman who forged my signature on legal documents. You want to talk about rights? Rebecca stood, grabbed her purse from the back of her chair. Michael, we're leaving. But Michael didn't move. He sat there staring at the papers in front of him, at his own name on the forged documents. Sit down, Rebecca, I said. You're going to hear this. She remained standing. I looked directly at her. As of this morning, both of you are evicted. You have 30 days to remove your possessions from my house. My house. Not ours. Mine. My name is on that deed, 70% ownership, and I want you out. You can't. I can. I've already spoken with an attorney. All accounts you had access to are now frozen. Every password changed. All credit cards canceled. You are removed from my will, my life insurance, every beneficiary designation I ever had. Legally, completely, permanently. Michael finally spoke. Mom, please, let me explain. I turned to him. What will you explain? That you let your wife steal from me. That you stood by while she forged documents in my name. That you listened to her plan my funeral like it was a business opportunity and said nothing. My voice cracked, just slightly. The first real emotion breaking through. That you stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as an inheritance to manage. It wasn't like that, Michael whispered. Then what was it like? He had no answer. I stood, pulled three $50 bills from my wallet, and laid them on the table. More than enough to cover the wine and whatever they ordered after I left. 30 days, I said. After that, if you're still in my house, I file a police report for fraud and theft. I have documentation of everything, every forged signature, every stolen dollar. My attorney has copies. I picked up my purse. Mom, wait. Michael started to stand. Don't. The word came out harder than I intended. Don't call me that right now. Don't say you're sorry. Don't tell me you didn't mean it. Just pack your things and leave. I walked toward the exit. My hands were shaking, but I kept my head up, kept my steps measured. Behind me, I heard Rebecca hiss something at Michael, heard his chair scrape against the floor. I didn't look back. The valet brought my car around. I tipped him $5 and drove home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. They hadn't beaten me home yet. I went inside, locked the front door behind me, climbed the stairs to my bedroom, turned the new lock, sat on the edge of my bed, and finally let myself shake. They came home an hour after I did. I heard the front door open, heard their footsteps on the stairs. They went to their bedroom and closed the door. Voices filtered through the wall, muffled but intense. They argued until past midnight. The next morning, neither of them left for work. Rebecca came out of their bedroom around 9, wearing yoga pants and one of Michael's sweatshirts. She made coffee in the kitchen like it was any other Sunday. When I came downstairs, she looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Martha, we need to talk. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. There hasn't. I think you're confused about some things. The stress, at your age. I'm not confused. I'm done. You have 29 days left. She started crying, real tears streaming down her face. How can you do this? We're family. Michael is your son, your only child. I walked past her and poured my own coffee. Over the next 2 weeks, they didn't pack a single box. Instead, they changed tactics. Rebecca became the concerned daughter-in-law, worried sick about my mental state. She mentioned it to the mailman, to the neighbor 2 doors down, to the woman who delivered groceries. We're just so worried about her. She's been saying the strangest things lately. The Wi-Fi password changed. When I tried to log on, it wouldn't connect. I asked Michael about it. Oh, we updated it for security. I'll text you the new one. He never did. Tuesday afternoon, I came home from the pharmacy to find the front door locked from the inside. My key wouldn't turn. I knocked, waited 10 minutes in the cold before Rebecca opened it, looking surprised. Oh, Martha, I'm so sorry. I was in the shower and must have hit the interior lock by accident. It happened again Thursday. I started placing single strands of hair across my dresser drawers before leaving the house, pressed into the crack where drawer met frame. Came home to find them broken, drawers slightly ajar. Someone was going through my things while I was out. Michael tried a softer approach. He knocked on my bedroom door Wednesday evening, asked if we could talk. Mom, I know I made mistakes, serious ones, but I love you. I always have. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. Dad would want us to work this out, he continued. He'd want us to be a family, to forgive each other. Something in my chest tightened. David's name in Michael's mouth, used like a tool. Your father would be ashamed of what you've become. Michael's face crumpled. For a moment I almost reached for him, almost pulled him into a hug like I had 1,000 times when he was young. Almost 27 days, I said instead, and closed the door. Friday afternoon, I came home from the bank to find 5 cars parked on the street. I recognized 2 of them, Michael's cousin Susan's minivan and Tom Bradford's pickup truck. Tom had been David's college roommate. Inside, the living room was full of people. Rebecca stood in the center, holding a wine glass, Michael beside her, looking miserable. Martha, Rebecca's voice was bright, false. We were just talking about you. Come sit down. I set my purse on the hall table. Counted 7 people total, all watching me. Well, we're so worried about Martha, Rebecca announced to the room. She's been confused lately, saying wild things about money, accusing us of theft. We think she might need to see a specialist. Early cognitive decline, maybe. Susan stood up and came over, took my hands. Martha, honey, there's no shame in it. My mother went through the same thing at your age. Maybe you should see a doctor. Everyone looked at me with identical expressions, pity mixed with concern. They saw exactly what Rebecca wanted them to see, A declining elderly woman, irrational and paranoid. It was masterful. Textbook gaslighting performed in front of witnesses who would swear Rebecca had only been caring and concerned. I smiled at Susan, patted her hand. You're absolutely right. I should see a doctor. In fact, I already have. I walked to my purse, pulled out a manila envelope, returned to the living room, and handed it to Susan. Weinson, that's a full cognitive evaluation from Dr. Patterson, performed 3 days ago. Perfect scores across all measures, no decline, no confusion. Would you like to read it aloud to everyone? Susan opened the envelope. Her face changed as she scanned the first page. I pulled a second envelope from my purse, and these are the police reports I filed this morning. Fraud, forgery, financial exploitation of an elder. Detective Morrison will be contacting both Michael and Rebecca for statements within the next 48 hours. The room went silent. I looked at each person in turn. I apologize for the deception. This wasn't a social gathering. This was my daughter-in-law's final attempt to paint me as incompetent so she could continue stealing from me. She failed. Rebecca's wine glass slipped from her hand. It hit the hardwood floor and shattered, red wine spreading across the oak. And the evidence is documented. Forged signatures on mortgage papers, unauthorized bank transfers, changed insurance beneficiaries, 8 months of systematic theft. My attorney has everything. Tom Bradford stood up. Jesus, Martha, is this true? Every word. He looked at Michael. Mike. Michael stared at the floor. People started gathering coats, making excuses. Susan handed me back the envelope without a word. Within 15 minutes, everyone was gone except Michael, Rebecca, and me. Rebecca stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by broken glass. You're going to regret this. No, I said. I'm not. They packed 4 suitcases in under an hour. Rebecca threw things into bags while Michael moved mechanically, his face blank. They loaded the car in silence. At the door, Michael turned back. Mom, don't. They drove away. I watched their taillights disappear down the street. The house was quiet, completely, utterly quiet. I walked through the rooms, living room with its expensive furniture Rebecca had chosen, kitchen where Michael used to cook dinner, study where I'd found all those hidden papers, my house, finally mine again. I sat on the couch and started crying, not from sadness, not from anger, from relief so profound it felt physical, like something heavy I'd been carrying had finally been set down. I cried until I had nothing left. Then I got up, swept the broken wine glass into a dustpan, and mopped the floor until no trace of red remained. 3 weeks passed. Detective Morrison called twice for follow-up questions. Chen emailed updates. The district attorney was building a case, criminal charges likely within the month. Rebecca had hired Marcus Steinberg, expensive defense attorney from downtown. Michael shared Rebecca's lawyer, which told me everything about their finances. Chen said the evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, documented transfers, testimony from bank employees who'd flagged suspicious activity. Rebecca was looking at felony fraud. Michael, accessory charges at minimum. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Plain envelope, my name and address in Michael's handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened. Instead, I carried it to the study and sat at the desk. 8 pages, front and back. His handwriting got messier as it went. Words slanting downward at the end of each page like he was collapsing under the weight of what he was trying to say. He was devastated. That came through clearly. Said Rebecca had manipulated him, that he didn't fully understand what was happening until it was too late. Classic deflection. I'd seen enough crime shows to recognize it. But underneath the excuses, there was genuine anguish. The last paragraph hit differently. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. But I need you to know. I did love you. I do love you. I just lost my way so completely that I couldn't see what I was doing until you showed me. By then, I'd already destroyed everything that mattered. I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it down and stared out the window at the backyard David had planted with rose bushes 25 years ago. They'd survived him, bloomed every spring without fail. What I felt wasn't forgiveness, wasn't hatred either. It was grief, deep, aching grief for the son I thought I had, for the relationship that had died long before I overheard that funeral conversation. I just hadn't known it yet, but there was something else underneath the grief, something harder to acknowledge. I'd made Michael this way, not entirely, Rebecca had her own darkness, her own choices, but I'd laid the foundation, paid his tuition so he never worked through school, gave him startup money so he never risked real failure, handed over that $80,000 for his wedding and condo so he never learned to wait, to save, to sacrifice. I'd smoothed every path, fixed every problem, absorbed every consequence, taught him that love meant endless giving without boundaries, that being a mother meant making life easy instead of making him strong. Unconditional love without limits doesn't create grateful children. It creates adults who see you as a resource to be managed, not a person to be respected. That was the truth I'd been avoiding. I'd failed him by never teaching him struggle, by never letting him fall, by prioritizing his comfort over his character until he became a man who could stand by while his wife planned to profit from my death. I pulled out a single sheet of paper and wrote one paragraph. Michael, I received your letter. I acknowledge your apology, but do not accept it. You are not a child who was tricked. You are a grown man who chose comfort over character. When your wife stole from me, you knew. When she forged documents, you knew. When she spoke of my death as opportunity, you said nothing. Those were choices. I did not fail as a mother by withholding love. I failed by withholding consequences. That ends now. You will face legal consequences for your actions. After that, if you wish to rebuild a relationship, it will be on a foundation of honesty, accountability, and boundaries I should have set 30 years ago. I do not hate you. I grieve for you. But I will not save you this time. I mailed it that afternoon. 4 days later, Michael showed up at the house. I saw him through the window, sitting in his car in the driveway for 10 minutes before he finally got out and walked to the door. I let him in. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd confronted them with evidence in front of their staged intervention. He looked terrible, thinner, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. Mom, please. I'm begging you. Drop the charges. I'll pay back every dollar. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't send us to prison. Us? Rebecca and me. We're a team. We made mistakes together. Rebecca forged my signature. Rebecca set up the transfers. Rebecca planned the equity loan. What exactly did you do, Michael? Besides stand there and let it happen? He started crying, full sobs, shoulders shaking. I didn't know how to stop her. She was so convincing. So sure everything would be fine. I was weak. I know that now. You were complicit. Yes, he looked up at me. Yes, I was, and I hate myself for it. But Mom, I'm your son. Doesn't that mean something? It means everything. That's why this hurts. That's why I'm doing it. Doing what? Destroying my life? Teaching you what I should have taught you decades ago, that actions have consequences, that you can't steal and lie and betray people and walk away clean because someone who loves you will fix it. He wiped his face with his sleeve. So that's it? You're just going to let them prosecute us? You can earn back trust over years, maybe decades. But first, you face this. You plead guilty. You take your sentence. You do the work to understand how you became someone capable of this. And then, his voice cracked. Will you forgive me? I looked at him. My son, the boy I'd raised alone, sacrificed for, loved beyond measure, the man who'd planned to profit from my death. I don't know. Ask me in 10 years. He stood up slowly, like an old man, walked to the door, turned back once. I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. I know you are. That's a start. I watched him drive away, stood at the window until his car disappeared around the corner, felt something lift, not happiness, not vindication, just the absence of a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. The prison of pretending, of smiling through disrespect, of accepting scraps and calling it love. I was free from it now. 6 months later, I sat in courtroom 4B on the 3rd floor of the county courthouse. The room smelled like old wood and industrial cleaner. I'd worn a gray dress, simple jewelry, wanted to look dignified, not vindictive. Rebecca's attorney had negotiated a plea deal. 3 years in state prison, 5 years probation after release, full restitution of stolen funds plus penalties. She'd avoid trial, avoid the possibility of 7 years if a jury convicted her on all counts. Michael pleaded guilty to conspiracy and accessory to fraud. 18 months, suspension of his professional licenses, probation. Chen had told me the prosecutor pushed for harsher terms, but Michael's cooperation and lack of prior record worked in his favor. Judge Patricia Hendricks presided. She was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back severely, reading glasses perched on her nose. She'd reviewed the case files for 3 weeks before today's sentencing hearing. "Mrs. Harrison, would you like to read your victim impact statement?" I stood, walked to the podium. My hands were steady on the paper. "I do not stand here seeking revenge. I stand seeking acknowledgement. For 6 years, I was made to feel I was a burden, that my presence in my own home was an imposition, that my life was an obstacle to my son's inheritance." I looked up. Rebecca stared straight ahead, expression blank. Michael's shoulders were hunched, head down. I was not a person to them. I was eventually dead, eventually out of the way, eventually theirs to liquidate. What they stole was not just money. It was my dignity, my security, my right to be seen as a human being, not an asset. My voice didn't waver. I wanted to be loved. Instead, I was appraised. I returned to my seat. The courtroom was silent except for someone's phone vibrating in the back row. Judge Hendricks called Rebecca forward. "Ms. Tat Harrison, do you have a statement before sentencing?" Rebecca stood. She'd lost weight, looked gaunt in her court-appropriate suit. When she spoke, her voice was cold. "Your Honor, I acknowledge my mistakes. The financial stress of maintaining 2 properties, combined with Martha's controlling behavior regarding household decisions, created an environment where I made poor choices. I take responsibility for my actions, but I also believe context matters. Controlling behavior. She was still blaming me. I never intended to cause harm. I was trying to secure my family's future. I hope the court considers my previously clean record and my contributions to the community." She sat down. No tears, no genuine remorse, just calculated words designed to minimize. Judge Hendricks's expression hardened. Michael was called next. He stood slowly, gripped the podium like he might fall without it. "Your Honor, His voice broke immediately. He tried again. "I betrayed the person who loved me most. My mother gave me everything, paid for my education, supported my business, gave me a home, and I repaid her by standing silent while my wife stole from her." He was crying now, openly, didn't try to hide it. "I chose my marriage, my comfort, my greed over my mother's well-being. There is no excuse, no explanation that makes it acceptable. I am ashamed of who I became. I will spend my life trying to become someone who deserves her forgiveness, knowing I may never receive it." He looked directly at me for the first time. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I know it's not enough. It will never be enough, but I'm sorry." Judge Hendricks let the silence sit for a long moment. "Mr. Harrison, Ms. Harrison, approach for sentencing." They stood before her bench. In my 23 years on this bench, I have seen many cases of financial exploitation, but this one is particularly egregious because of the relationship involved. You, Mr. Harrison, exploited the woman who gave you life, who sacrificed for you, who loved you unconditionally. You saw that love as weakness to be used rather than a gift to be honored. She turned to Rebecca. "And you, Mrs. Harrison, orchestrated a systematic campaign of theft and fraud against an elderly woman whose only crime was welcoming you into her home. Your statement today showed no genuine remorse, only self-justification. This court sees no mitigation." She looked down at her papers. "Rebecca Harrison, you are hereby sentenced to 3 years in state prison as per your plea agreement. However, I am denying your request for consideration of time served and work release programs. You will serve the full term." Rebecca's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, denied." Next, Michael Harrison, you are sentenced to 18 months in county correctional facility, to be followed by 5 years probation. Your professional licenses are suspended for 5 years following your release. Additionally, both defendants are ordered to pay full restitution of $2,400 in stolen funds, plus $70,000 for the fraudulent mortgage, plus court costs and penalties. Total restitution, $87,650. The bailiff approached. Rebecca was led out first, walking stiffly, not looking at anyone. Michael followed, slower. He glanced back once more. I met his eyes but said nothing. The courtroom emptied. Chen touched my elbow. "You okay?" I nodded, gathered my purse, walked out into the hallway where afternoon light streamed through tall windows. Felt nothing. Not satisfaction at seeing them sentenced. Not pain at watching my son led away in handcuffs. Just emptiness. Conclusion. A chapter closing with no fanfare, no dramatic music, no sense of victory or defeat. Just done. I drove home through ordinary traffic, made dinner for one, ate at the kitchen table while reading a book I'd bought the week before. This was my life now. Quiet. Mine. Neither tragic nor triumphant. Simply real. 1 year later, I sat in the garden behind my house with dirt under my fingernails and the sun warm on my shoulders. The tomatoes were coming in heavy this year, beefsteak and cherry, staked carefully against the fence David had built decades ago. Basil grew thick in terracotta pots. Marigolds bordered the vegetable beds, bright orange against dark soil. Things that took time and care, things that rewarded patience. The house deed sat in my study drawer, officially amended. Just my name now. Martha Louise Harrison, sole owner. Chen had handled the paperwork while Michael and Rebecca served their sentences. The mortgage was paid off completely. I'd used money from selling the Riverside condo after it was returned to me through the restitution process. Tuesday evenings, I went to a grief group at the community center. Not for David's death. I'd processed that years ago. This was for betrayal. For the particular kind of loss that comes from discovering someone you loved saw you as something to exploit. 7 women attended regularly. Patricia, whose daughter had stolen her retirement. Linda, whose son-in-law forged her name on a reverse mortgage. We sat in a circle and talked about the specific pain of family theft, how it's different from stranger crime, how people minimize it, how hard it is to admit. These women understood. We'd become friends. Real ones. The kind who showed up when you needed help replanting rose bushes or just wanted company for coffee. Thursday afternoons, I volunteered at the legal aid clinic downtown, helped elderly clients document financial abuse, explained what evidence they needed, connected them with attorneys, prevented what I could, witnessed too many cases where I couldn't, but prevention mattered. Each person I helped file a police report, each elder who learned to check their bank statements, each family that set up proper oversight, it added up. Michael wrote monthly from county lockup. Long letters, increasingly honest. I read every one, responded to maybe half. My replies were brief, factual. No false warmth, no promises of reconciliation. In my last letter, I'd written, I am rebuilding a life that doesn't revolve around you. That's healthy. For both of us. He'd written back, you're right. I spent 34 years expecting you to orbit around me. I never asked what you needed, what you wanted. I'm trying to learn how to be different. It's harder than I thought. 18 months after sentencing, I drove to the correctional facility for a visit. First time seeing Michael since the courthouse. I'd thought about it for weeks before requesting the appointment. They led me to a visiting room. Small tables, plastic chairs, everything bolted down. Michael came in wearing tan scrubs, looking older, thinner, gray showing at his temples. We sat across from each other. Hi, Mom. Michael. We talked for an hour, carefully, like people learning a new language together. He told me about his therapy sessions, the accountability group the chaplain ran, his job in the facility kitchen. Talked about reading books on financial abuse, on entitlement, on repairing broken trust. I noticed something. He talked about his choices now, his failures, not what Rebecca did to him or how circumstances pushed him, just what he'd chosen and why it was wrong. I'm learning that I built my whole identity around avoiding discomfort, he said. Anytime something was hard, I looked for someone to fix it. Usually you. Rebecca saw that and used it, but I created the opening. I made myself someone who could be used like that. It was the most honest thing I'd heard him say in years. When the guard announced visiting hours were ending, Michael stood. Thank you for coming. I know you didn't have to. No, I didn't. Will you? He hesitated. Will you come again? Maybe. Ask me in 6 months. He nodded, started to walk away, then turned back. How do you think you'll ever forgive me? I looked at him. My son, the child I'd raised, failed, lost, and was now watching try to rebuild himself from wreckage. I don't know, but I see you trying. That matters. Keep trying. It wasn't forgiveness, wasn't absolution, but it was something. Small, honest, real. I drove home as the sun set, turning the sky orange and pink, pulled into my driveway, walked into my house, my kitchen, my space. Made dinner, just for myself. Simple pasta with the basil from my garden, salad with tomatoes I'd grown, poured a glass of wine, sat at the table and ate slowly, tasting everything. The silence was complete, peaceful. People asked if I regretted it, calling the police, pursuing charges, sending my son to prison for 18 months. The answer was no. I regretted what made it necessary. Regretted the years I was too afraid to set boundaries, too desperate for approval to demand respect. Regretted teaching my son that love meant accepting mistreatment, that being a mother meant erasing myself, but I didn't regret choosing myself. Finally, at 63 years old, I chose me, and that, I'd learned, wasn't cruelty. It was survival. It was dignity. It was the most loving thing I could have done, for both of us. Because unconditional love without boundaries doesn't save people. It destroys them, slowly, completely. I'd loved Michael so much, I'd made him weak. Now he was learning strength the hard way, and I was learning that I could love him and still protect myself, that these things weren't opposites. They were requirements. I washed the dishes, dried them, put them away. The phone rang. Janet from book club. Martha, you coming tomorrow? We're discussing the new Margaret Atwood. I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. Great. See you at 7. I hung up, looked around the kitchen. The house was quiet, but not empty, full of my things, my choices, my life, the life I'd fought to reclaim, the life I'd almost lost to people who saw me as an eventually instead of a person. I stood at the sink and looked out the window at the garden, at the tomatoes heavy on their vines, at the marigolds bright against the fence. And I breathed, really breathed, deep and full and free. For the first time in years, I was enough. Not because someone else said so, not because I'd earned it through sacrifice or service, just because I'd finally learned the hardest lesson. You can love someone completely and still refuse to be destroyed by them. That was the truth, the only truth that mattered. I turned off the lights and went upstairs to my bedroom, the one with the lock I'd changed, the sanctuary I'd reclaimed. Tomorrow, I'd water the garden. Thursday, I'd go to the legal aid clinic. Friday, Janet and I were driving to the coast for the weekend. My life, mine, and it was enough.